Hi guys, it's Ms. Griffin again. We're looking at Unit 7, Skill 7, Perpendicular Bisector. So you've heard this word, this phrase a lot, but now we're going to write the equation of a perpendicular bisector of a given line. So that's your essential question. How do you write the equation of a perpendicular bisector of a given line? So we're going to break down this name to figure out what we need. Perpendicular means that we need right angles, of course, like it's forming right angles. But in terms of writing equations, we need the opposite reciprocal slope. In other words, flip and negate. The bisector part means that we're going to cut it in half. So we need the midpoint. Recall that slope means that you are finding change x and change y, so that you can do change y over change x. For the midpoint, we can do this graphically, or we can do it algebraically. So I'm going to say graphically, or use this formula. Now, if you choose to use the formula, you do have to memorize it. So I would stick with the graphic option, but here's the formula in case you want it. It's x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So if you're given 2 points, they're given to you as x1, y1, and x2, y2. And then you just plug them in. You're essentially finding the average. So we've got this segment AB plotted. It doesn't have labels, so we should maybe consider labeling it A and B based on the coordinates they gave us. Write the equation of the perpendicular bisector of AB. So again, first thing we need is the midpoint. So I'm going to put in my little right triangle and count the boxes. This one's a change of 4, and this one is a change of 2, 4, 6. To get a midpoint, we have got to cut those things in half. So divide it by 2, and then that tells me I have to go down 2 over 3. So here is my midpoint M, and that's located at 1, 2, 3, 4, comma, negative 3. So I'm going to write that down, 4, negative 3. Second thing we need is the slope. Said that we went down 4, so negative 4, over 6 before, because again, change y over change x gives us that down and over. And this can be reduced to negative 2/3. But then for step 3, we need the perpendicular slope, because remember, we want the perpendicular bisector. Perpendicular means to flip and negate, so that negative 2/3 flips upside down and negates itself to positive 2/3. Then our last and final step is to write the actual equation. So step 4, we're going to use that y equals mx plus b, and plug in what we know, solve for b. So we've got our x, which comes from the midpoint, our y comes from the midpoint, and our slope comes from step 3, perpendicular slope. So we've got negative 3 equals 3/2 times 4 plus b. Okay, so now we've got negative 3 equals 6 plus b. Subtract that 6 over, now we have negative 9 equals b. So last and final step is to write that equation, which would be y equals our slope of 3/2, x minus 9, because b was negative 9. So what we just did here was we took a segment. I'm just going to kind of resketch this for you. We had a segment. We used its midpoint. We made perpendicular lines by doing opposite reciprocal slopes, flipping and negating, to make those right angles in here. And then the equation that we just wrote would be what this line looks like when it's graphed. A positive 3/2 slope starting at a y-intercept of negative 9. Flip it over, we'll see one more example. So this one they did not plot for us, so take a second, pause your video, and plot those points. Make sure you get them labeled too. And then we're going to write the equation of the perpendicular bisector of PQ. Okay, so recall that your first step is find the midpoint. So we're going to find our changes by going up and over. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 4. Okay, so our midpoint has to take those and cut it in half. Divide by 2, divide by 2. So that means up 3 over 2. So our midpoint is located at positive 3, negative 1, and that's me counting from the origin. Right, so over 3, down 1. Second step is slope. And that would be change y over change x. You can make your little table if you want to, or just use your counting numbers. So we went up 6 over 4, and that reduces to 3 over 2. And then step 3 was to find your new slope for perpendicular lines. So flip that 3 over 2 upside down and negate it. And then step 4 is to write that equation y equals mx plus b and start plugging things in. Remember that we are referring back to the midpoint as x and y. And step 3 for our perpendicular slope. So we have y equals negative 2/3. I shouldn't have y equals anymore. Sorry about that. So instead of y, we're replacing it with negative 1. Negative 2/3 times 3 plus b. So negative 1 equals negative 2 plus b. And again, remember, you can just type that in your calculator if you're not sure how to do that in your head. And then add that 2 over, so now we have b equals 1. So final equation, y equals negative 2/3 x plus 1. Now, when I go back up top, I notice that that's not a choice. However, remember when we talked about when you have a problem like this, and I think it was skill 7.5, maybe 7.6, I'm not sure which, you just have to distribute and then move that number next to the y over. So this would first give me 3/2 x minus 3, but remember that down below, if I zoom out, we can see again, down below we have negative 2/3 x, so choice 1 is not going to be valid. Choice 2 could potentially be valid, so I'm going to work that one out real quick. We've got y minus 3 equals negative 2/3 x, and then it would be plus 4/3. If I add 3 to both sides, 4/3 plus 3 won't give me the positive 1 that I need, so choice 2 is gone. Choice 3, let's try it out, because that would give me a negative 2/3, so that was choice 2 up here. Choice 3 would give me y plus 1 equals negative 2/3 x plus 2. When I subtract 1 away, that gives me y equals negative 2/3 x plus 1. So number 3, choice 3, is the big winner. If you've got any questions, make sure that you ask. Otherwise, move on to your practice. This is just an application of what we did last skill 7.6 with perpendicular lines, except now we got to find the midpoint. Super easy. Just take that segment, cut it in half by using your slopes. Have a good one.